Well, welcome to the Botanical Medicine Study Course with me, Stephanie Georgiev, your host and instructor for the online class in all things botanical medicine. And the online class is different than these videos, so just know that. But if you would like to be the first on your blog to know more about what is available in terms of practice, science, and application of botanical medicine, CLINK, which is a combo word for click and link, CLINK below, and you will be directed to a form which will show you how you can download the introductory video and handouts. A special thanks to new subscribers and all of you who comment, like, and share these videos. It really does help to spread the word. The beautiful valley and mountain paths close to where I'm living in the Struma River Valley in southwestern Bulgaria is ablaze with all sorts of amazing wild plant life. What is really fun right now is that mullein is in bloom, which has inspired me to explore this plant for this week's Herb of the Week, mullein. Now, mullein, or Verbascum thapsus, as it is known in the botanical world, is yet another incredible gift from the plant world for our healing benefit. In addition to being a great pollinator, it also enriches your garden in that way, and also the environment in general. Often, mullein is a guest in one's garden and sort of moves across the yard from year to year. Where I used to hike in the Santa Ana Mountains in Southern California, mullein was everywhere, and it warms my heart that I can still enjoy this plant on my hikes in the local mountains here in Bulgaria. Verbascum thapsus, or great mullein, as it is also known, is a species of mullein native to Europe, Northern Africa, and Asia, and was introduced in the Americas and Australia. Mullein is a hairy biennial plant that can grow to 2 meters or 6 feet tall or more. It has small yellow flowers that are densely grouped on a tall stem, as you can see in this wonderful vintage drawing of Verbascum. And the stem, the tall stem, grows from a large rosette of leaves. It grows in a wide variety of habitats, but prefers well-lit and disturbed soils, where it usually appears, in the ground when the ground receives light. And the seeds are really hardy, and they persist in the soil, which is referred to as a seed bank. And it's a common weedy plant that spreads prolifically by producing seeds. And we're talking hundreds and thousands of seeds. It's quite amazing how much this plant, and it's one reason why it tends to creep across your garden and also in nature. Now, some biologists consider it invasive in temperate world regions, but the fact that they list it as invasive is, in my opinion, so ignorant as to how amazing this plant is, both for the environment and also for human health. Now, Dioscorides, that famous Greek herbalist who produced this herb, he was also considered obviously a physician, because back then physicians were herbalists. He wrote a book which was the herbal Bible for centuries. In fact, Hildegard of Bingen was the first one in the 12th century to create a new herbal. That's how popular Dioscorides was. And he considered it, he first recommended mullein 2,000 years ago, and considered it useful as a folk medicine for pulmonary diseases. And those are diseases of the lungs. Leaves were smoked. And I don't know how they did it back in Dioscorides' time, but it was a tradition in America that was rapidly transmitted to Native American people after the plant was introduced in America and North America from colonists. And the Zuni people, however, used the plants in poultices as a powdered root and applied this to sores, rashes, and skin infections. Roman soldiers are said to have dipped the plant stalks in grease, the substance, not the country, for use as torches. And here in Europe, the mullein often has almost like a candelabra experience, where the ones I saw in California and North America, they just had the single cone in the center. So I think it was probably a lot like carrying around a candelabra. The Romans did that. Other cultures use the leaves as wicks, which I find really interesting because in ancient times, fresh air and open windows weren't really the norm, and a lot of people got sick mainly because of cooking fires and lack of fresh air because there weren't any windows. And I think it's interesting that they used these as wicks, so hopefully that helped people with weak lungs. Now, common mullein is widely used in Spanish folk medicine to treat pathologies related to muscles, skeletons, the circulatory system, the digestive system, and the respiratory system, which I don't know what's left after all of that. And also to treat infections and diseases. And what's interesting is it's probably the Spaniards that brought mullein to North America. By the late 1800s, mullein became a popular treatment for people with tuberculosis in Europe, the United States, and the United Kingdom. Now, the herbal actions of this wonderful plant are, as you could expect, expectorant, which is something that helps get stuff out of the lungs, like mucus and infections. Basically, you're coughing it up. Demulcent, which is something that moisturizes tissues, particularly endothelial tissues and skin. Endothelium is the skin inside your body, and epidermis is the one on the outside of the body. Now, anti-inflammatory, it's anti-spasmodic, it's a vulnerary, which means it heals wounds, particularly of the skin. It has antibacterial, antiviral properties, and it also has sedative properties. So it's really good for cough, lung congestion, bronchitis, asthma, constipation, pain, inflammation, and it's a classical folk remedy as a topical relief for earaches. Now, some lab studies have shown verbascum, it's the fancy word for mullein, to have antiviral activity against influenza A and herpes. And one laboratory study found that combining the medication amantadine with mullein increased antiviral activity against influenza. Now, the chemical constituents of mullein, there's lots of them. Saponins, which have anti-inflammatory, pain-relieving, and anti-tumor properties. Flavonoids, which have antioxidant and anti-inflammatory properties. Something called phenolphthaleins, glycosides, which have anti-inflammatory, antioxidants, and antiviral properties. And something called iridoids, which have anti-inflammatory properties. Now, when I was in naturopathic school, mullein oil was the treatment of choice for the external use of earaches. And the oil was often mixed with garlic oil for good measure. And there's been a few studies suggesting the anti-inflammatory and antiviral bacterial properties are really what helps earaches. Now, there are numerous products on the market, and it's usually a garlic mullein combination for earaches. Now, children, by the very nature of their size, get quite a few earaches when young. And this is basically because of the shape of the head and the structure of what's called the eustachian tube, which is a tube that connects the inside of the throat to the eardrum. And in little kids, it's horizontal, which means stuff gets stuck in there very easily, food, mucus, liquid, and then it gets in there and then it gets infected and they start screaming and it's very unpleasant for everybody. But they usually grow out of this because then the eustachian tube basically gets longer and is more on an angle and stuff isn't put in, stuff doesn't get caught in them as easily. But what you need to do is look at the diet, especially in small children. If they're eating foods that they're allergic to, they produce more mucus, and more mucus means more clogged eustachian tubes because of the anatomy, and then you get infected, on and on and on. So if you remove allergens and then combine with internal remedies of your choice, it can be any choice, pharmaceuticals or herbs, but mullein ear oil used externally, and this basically is done by warming the oil, a couple drops of the oil in the bottle, just warming it, put a couple drops in the ear, and then put a cotton ball so that it's not oozing out everywhere. And this can really be a nice little topical numbing for the problem. Now, don't do this if the eardrum has burst, obviously. You can get a great infection doing that. Now, if earaches last for more than 2 days and the child has a very high fever, please seek professional help so the eardrum does not burst. Now, mullein has an affinity for the respiratory system, and many folk traditions have practices of inhaling smoke from mullein, and this can be done with cigarettes or by simply inhaling the smoke from some burning leaves. I've never done this personally, nor have I recommended it. And I would urge not to do this in the middle of an asthma attack for obvious reasons. But the anti-inflammatory aspects of mullein, along with the antispasmodic properties, mean that regular inhalation of the smoke of the leaves could be a deterrent to future problems. There are many ways to take mullein, both internally and externally. The oil made from the flowers is, as we discussed before, nice to relieve the pain from earaches. You can also rub the infused oil on the chest during times of bronchitis, and it helps ease coughing. You can also drink a tea from either the leaves or the flowers or both. And the capsules are usually made from the leaves, powdered and ground up leaves. And then you can also take it in tincture form. If you want to do smoke therapy, you can buy incense bundles to burn as you would sage. And again, I have never done this. So, viewers be warned. Now, since mullein grows wild, harvesting the leaves and flowers are probably your best bet. And mullein leaves should be harvested before the herb is in bloom, leaving at least 2/3 of the foliage on the plant. So don't just take all the leaves. That's not very nice. The flowers should be harvested just as they open, and the blossoms are short-lived and drop easily from the plant. So leaves and blossoms should be dried on a single layer on a paper-lined tray in a light, warm, and airy room, but out of direct sunlight. You can also use a food dehydrator to do this, but make sure it's on low. You don't want crispy, burnt out things. Now, the flowers can be also put into the oil straight away, no need to dry them, and you can make your own infused mullein oil for earaches. Now, mullein has a bit of a mind of its own, and it will often come as a volunteer to grace your garden, and it will walk through to a different location each year. If you want mullein on purpose, you can propagate mullein from seeds and cuttings. You can either buy seeds or collect seeds from plant as soon as the fruits are born from the flowers. Mullein with its deep taproot can also be propagated through root cuttings when the plant is dormant in the late fall to early spring. I have never done that, and I think it might kill the plant, but just know that it's a possibility to do that. There's links in the program notes for a great article by an informative website called The Spruce, and this is a photo from that website, and this lovely woman took this picture, so I want to give her credit. So if you are like me, I hope you are completely delighted by mullein as it graces the meadows, paths, and mountainsides of open spaces, or if it walks through your garden. Mullein can be a powerful ally for those whose lungs are on the weak side, or to help with a stubborn bronchitis or cough. And mullein oil can also ease the pain externally from middle ear infections. However you wish to incorporate this plant into your life, I hope you enjoy and appreciate what it has to offer. This is Stephanie Georgiev saying thanks for spending your valuable time with me. Click below for the introductory lesson to the Botanical Medicine Study course, and make sure to check out the other links for valuable information on all things mullein. So until next time, be well.